I'm here with the Toronto Defiant for a first team interview. I didn't even think that was a possibility. Apparently, the Toronto Defiant has the technology to do that much. And I will say, it's also interesting that it ended up the way it did. I know, like, I talked to Hydron before on the player panel, and you said, like, okay, you guys wanted to run it back if nobody wins the league. Real talk, like, if you guys, especially the Shock guys, if you guys win that last map, is this team really not happening?
Maybe it happens, but probably not with the shot guys.
Would you have just renewed possibly to defend the title, or why is that?
I think Shock had plans with O2 Blast. So, you know, even if we won, I feel like there probably would have been some changes. Maybe some people would have stayed, but I don't know. I feel like they kind of had like a plan like us where they wanted to come into the league as a team.
For sure. Now,
Yeah, I think they had plans with it too, but I do think like the possibility of us staying is like a lot higher if we win.
yeah, for sure. Now it's interesting because you guys, of course, already were with Casores. Did you kind of have to sell him to the rest of the American Tornado guys, or did they already know, or what was the process?
No, not really. We didn't really have to sell him.
I mean, I think for us, like, knowing Casores was in on it, like, it made it like 10 times that much easier. Like, we had other options, but I think Casores is what ultimately put us in Toronto, or put us over to the other teams. So, yeah.
It's interesting, like Kalush mentioned during the Platchet episode, that you think like you guys will need very different coaching this year than you needed last year, right? Like last year, there was probably a lot of polish, like, you know, adjusting to whatever Overwatch League practice is. Is it more now? You guys are all like already a season in. Is it more now? Okay, we need just someone for the team culture and like for the, you know, for the planning and not as much for the micro of introducing someone to the Overwatch League?
I think for me personally, watching Dallas win last year kind of showed me, and I guess these guys, the blueprint of like how it is to win the league and what it takes to win. So I think it was more this year like getting the right group of guys and kind of becoming that hive mind, because ultimately that's what won Dallas last year. So.
Yeah, I agree.
For sure. Do you guys recognize that you guys changed through that experience on those different teams? Did you guys come together and it was like, okay, that guy grew maybe a little bit here and there?
Yeah, definitely. We all worked with a bunch of different coaches, bunch of different players, like a lot of different like philosophies. So I think like us coming together and all like having these different experiences has been really good.
Did someone noticeably change just through, you know, the new environment or anything like that you guys notice, like in terms of maybe the level of silliness or how serious they take stuff?
Yeah, I think everyone changed like pretty drastically actually. But like I know a lot of people say we have like synergy and stuff, and like I just want to say like that we played on a different game, and like that was like what, 2 years ago now? It was a pretty long time ago. So that synergy that we had is almost like probably gone now. But the reason we came together is to try to get that back, and because we know what we can do if we get it back, and we know it's possible. So yeah, I mean, playing on a different team for a year under different staff with players, how you play the game on a new game, you know, it changes a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even though it's like a different game, like we know like we'll work well together and like we'll do well like if we're like not doing so well, I guess, in matches or something, that we'll be able to bounce back or come back from that. So that's part of it.
Sure. Casores, there's one outlier pick in your coaching staff that was recently announced. And I think it is a weird one, right? Like a Chinese coach, especially like after the season that they had. Of course, like we know the circumstances, but you know, that's probably a pick that not many make. Why did that convince you? What brought NoHill to the table that you wanted?
So I did a big trial for coaches, and I felt that the way NoHill provided his feedback, the way he looks at the game, is extremely different from me. And when I made this coaching staff, I didn't want everybody to just look in the same directions. I want people to argue with me and to be able to say, hey, Casores, this is not the right direction. We should be doing this instead. So I felt that, with how different NoHill is and, with his more APAC view of the game since he was in APAC last year, I think it's a good complement to the way I see the game. And hopefully, we can fill each other's weaknesses a little bit while also, helping each other's strengths and giving each other the time to breathe. So I feel like NoHill has a very, very good macro understanding of the game. And he also wants to build a family with these guys just like all of us want to do.
He's a bit eccentric, isn't he? Like, what's working with him like?
So he's going to be here later this year. So I haven't worked with him in person yet, but he's very passionate. He cares about the game a lot, which is what kind of drew me to him, right? He's, in his own words, he thinks about the game 24/7. And he's very outgoing, very blunt. So I felt that even though, his English might not be as good yet, it's quite good. I felt that he is social enough and eccentric enough, like you said, to go out of his way to talk to these guys and, to give them their vision of the game and his vision of the game and to be able to, argue and go back and forth. I think that's really important.
For sure. Now, the other guy is Wheats, and that's someone that's a little bit more known to the players. I think that was also one of those that flew under the radar, even though it should have probably been pretty possible or likely at least after he wasn't announced back on his collegiate team. So why was it clear that you guys had to reunite with him?
So just in the way that I felt NoHill is like the arguer, the one that can really argue with me, convince me of his point, give me like a different point of view. I also wanted to find somebody that the players were very comfortable with and they had worked with before. So I felt that, with the new of me and NoHill, like being more coach-led, I also wanted somebody that they've worked with before, that they've had experience with, and they've all had good experiences with. Maybe one of these guys can tell me what it was like working with NoHill before. OG?
Wheats, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Wheats.
Well, Wheats is like the most patient man alive, and it's nice to have on a roster like this with like a lot of outgoing personalities. It's nice to have like a coach too that like you can relate to and trust like right off the bat. I mean, I do trust Cass and NoHill obviously, but Wheats we've worked with for like a long time, and it's nice to have someone just to kind of like mediate everything and just oversee that everything's going smoothly.
Is his in-game knowledge more micro-focused, or where's his expertise?
More macro, I'd say. He gives a good top-down perspective.
For sure.
So yeah, where Wheats really fits in is he's very good at making a team play together and making sure that everybody's on the same page, making sure that communication's right. And that's really what I want to do with these guys, right? Hydron already pointed at it earlier. But the reason why Dallas Fuel won last year, for example, isn't because they are the most mechanically skilled players in each of their roles. It's because they worked as a hive mind. And now we're a full English-speaking roster. We want to be that NA hive mind that plays together and has, the synergy to make that happen.
For sure. Is that... It's an interesting situation also because... I mean, everyone but Majed is American. I wonder, like, are you guys trying to just get into the World Cup as a whole? Is that maybe the only way, reasonably, that a team can rival South Korea this year?
Well, I'm not American here.
I think, us coming together has nothing to do with the World Cup, but I do think that, like how it has in like previous years, that we've been top 3 or maybe even the best in our own respective roles in America. So I think even if this team didn't end up happening, I think we would have ended up on Team USA together regardless.
There's some competition on a couple of roles that you play, right? And technically, I think competition within role is a little bit overplayed, especially because very often styles are different in terms of high resources, low resources. But have you diverted roles with, like, you guys talked about the Tracer role, of course, but what about everything else? What about Genji? Like, who for instance, is picking up the slack there?
We don't know. It's just that simple. We don't know.
Is that something that will be decided in trials?
So of course
Or-
it can't be decided right now, right? We've barely started scrims. Many teams have barely started scrims. So, but the way I do see it, Yiska, is that I like to divert roles based on like personalities. And the way, you know, this team is formed is, for example, Speedly is a player who plays really well with a lot of resources. Many people know, you know, how good his Echo was with the Mercy Pocket back when it was that Ball Sigma meta. So I've tried picking players like based on their playstyles. For example, UV is a player who mostly focuses on healing and is very good at keeping his teammates alive, while Mayet is a flex support that I picked up because he's very good at fragging, right? And his aim is incredible. So I think who plays what character won't be just based on what hero they play. It will be based on what is this meta like and which player does best with resources or without resources. And that will, you know, have to go based on meta through meta. So if you put a gun to my head right now and said, does this player play this character? I couldn't tell you.
For sure. But Majet, what does preparation then look like right now? Are you just playing the entire flex support pool, or what are you doing?
I mean, it just depends on the meta and like the heroes, like Cass said. So I don't know.
And right
We'll
now,
see.
Yeah, it's always going to be good to not have like players like focus on a couple of heroes so that you can make those swaps in games and like have like multiple people who are comfortable in the single hero. I think.
Yeah.
I think it's also important that we're like incorporating the entire team the whole time, regardless of hero pools or playstyles within our practices. So everyone's still contributing and, you know, still learning. And, you know, you're not just benched and you're just like pretty much out of Overwatch League. You know what I mean? So Overwatch League on payroll. So without rank. No, rank we have rank now, but we want to, you know, have everyone working together on the same thing, regardless of heroes or roles or anything, play styles.
I recently talked to Askoft, and he's a pretty big proponent of having, you know, your starters play, being pretty mean and lean. Do you think that can work at all? Like a team of 5, maybe the 6th guy is the coach, and like no substitutes. Can everyone just grind every hero?
I shouldn't answer this question.
I definitely think it's a possibility where you just have 5 people in for the whole year, right? But what I'm trying to do with Defiant especially is have people with different personalities who can come in different metas. And we don't have a super wide roster, right? We only have 7 players currently. So there's enough overlap where if I feel like, oh, this player could be better in this meta, I want that, you know, to be a team decision. But each meta, every player should still get a shot. I think if you want to be a mean and lean team, you should push like right away, like at the start, even before the off season, to go for that, right? But I think what we're trying to do at Defiant is have each player have their specialty and be put in based on personalities of each meta.
You said you're only 7 guys currently. That seems to imply that there's a possibility. Presumably that would be the tank position, right?
Well, there's always a possibility, but currently we have a lot of faith in Kaluj. Last year, for example, he learned how to play Winston extremely well in stage 1. He did not do that good. We played a meta around him, but toward the end of the season, you know, he started improving and he started growing throughout, you know, his own experience, his own grinding, and I think he's grown a lot as a player and a lot as a person too in the last year. So whether we get a second tank or not, we still have a lot of faith in Kaluj.
What if Wrecking Ball stays meta?
It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, we're screwed.
Well, if Wrecking Ball stays meta, we'll likely have to resort to a London style of play where we don't play the meta.
Makes sense, yeah. Are 30 days or something like that? I mean, Mickey's technically still available, right? Is that a possibility that you're looking at as well?
I'm always looking at possibilities, but of course I can't comment on that.
For sure. Now, I mean, the season isn't starting soon, but part of the season, I guess you guys can decide or comment on that. Like, how serious are you going to take the ProAm, and is that Overwatch League?
I think we're gonna take it pretty serious. It's a tournament with money, so obviously, I want to win to get the prize pool, but also just like show people like what kind of team we are to start off the year, or not even start off the year, like before the year starts.
Yeah, I mean, in the long term, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have any playoffs implications or whatever, but it's like good because we're going to be practicing the entire time. It's going to be a good like benchmark for how we're doing and seeing where we can progress to.
Should there have been more incentive for a ProAm? I know there maybe were some ideas that, it could give some seasonal benefits. Should that have happened?
I'm unsure. I think, Blizzard's probably looked at a lot of the options and, whether it's enough of incentive or it isn't, I feel like it's the way where we can build our first initial synergy because like these guys said, they haven't played together in 2 years. We've got to build that up again. And what I've told them is, we should just start at expectation 0 and just build our way up like any other team. So, whether there's incentive or not, I see it as our first tournament where we can once again, build up experience with them, with the coaching staff, and them with each other again.
What's your general feeling? How serious is the league taking this?
I feel like it depends on team to team. I know some teams aren't taking it that serious and some teams are taking it very serious. I feel like we should take every tournament serious.
Sure. I mean, it is sort of expressed in the amount of people that should be starting to scrim if competition starts mid-March. Shouldn't everyone just be on the grind already if it was serious?
I feel like most teams are on the grind already. What some teams have the issue of course, is that they are split right now. Like some players are in Korea, some players are in NA. Most of the teams that are playing on one server are scrimming in their respective region right now. So, for example, Atlanta is an NA team, right? But they haven't moved here yet, so they're scrimming in Korea right now. And a bunch of teams are doing that. So I feel like it's starting to warm up with, the ProAm getting closer. But maybe if it was the real season, teams would have started scrimming a little bit earlier.
For sure. Is there any Contenders team that realistically has any chance, at least, of upsetting like the bottom teams?
Yeah. There's Odyssey. I think they could upset a couple of the bottom tier teams, like bottom L.
And I think there's like a team Samito's on. I heard they took down Vegas, right? Yeah.
Took down Vegas.
They did. Yeah. So anything's possible in this ProAm.
For sure.
Yeah, no words.
You guys also talked about the season format and already voiced a little bit of your concerns there in terms of like you would have liked maybe more participation, more tournaments, or maybe more offline events that was fun for you. At least Collusion, Sam have commented on that. What about the others? Like, what would you have liked to see more in this season format?
I think generally, like the more offline tournaments, the more LANs, the better it is. This is kind of what this is all about, to compete and to compete in front of a live audience, which is the most competitive and the most fun for me. And I think the majority of players feel the same way. So for me personally, more tournaments, more LANs, the better.
What about Speed?
I honestly think the current format is okay. I think too many LANs can be a little bit tiring for the players. So I think this current format is okay.
Are you concerned about the downsizing of regular season games and the volatility that comes with that, especially like strength of the schedule?
No, not really.
I think one issue that we might face is that there is only 6 matches to qualify for the mid-season madness. I think, of course, the teams that have a weaker strength of schedule might have a higher chance of placing high there, and it would have been nice to have more matches in order to qualify, for such like the second biggest tournament of the year. So, of course, we would have liked more regular season matches, especially before the mid-season madness, and because obviously, the fans want to see as many matches as possible, and I believe on-stage Overwatch is the best way to play Overwatch and the best way to view Overwatch as well. Look at the playoffs last year. It was amazing in front of that crowd. I don't think you can get an experience like that playing online tournaments. Sorry. So, only having 2 online tournaments, offline tournaments is obviously, a downside I feel like nobody's happy with. But like Speed said as well, it's a lot less stress on traveling and a lot less stress on the players. So there's upsides and downsides.
Theoretically speaking, like if you run down how last year the stages went, there was always like a balance injection that changed the meta in some way. Now, yes, the Overwatch League team has sort of designed the schedule around the patch schedule. At the same time, I feel like now this year, something very different is asked of the teams, right? Like, for instance, we saw a pattern with Glads being pretty bad at the start of a meta and then really like coming out of the gates later on. And by the end of the stage, they look pretty good in practically every meta they played in, right? So is this just going to be very different what this season asks of the teams? And will teams with very different profiles be good?
I think, of course, teams that are quick to adapt metas have always been the best teams right off the gate. I think, this year we'll just kind of have to wait and see what happens. But Overwatch, traditionally, since Overwatch 2 has come out, has been about adaptability to each new meta. And the team that adapts the quickest and finds the best comp the fastest tends to do the best. I think with the way they're scheduling it this year, that might change, but I think, with the group of guys, we're able to adjust to almost every composition, except for maybe the ball composition. But, I picked this group of guys because I know how flexible they are and how each meta we can grow upon each other. It's just going to be up to the players and the coaching staff to figure out, the meta quicker than all the other teams and be able to execute the best.
Especially like in seasons where the meta was more stable, sometimes the meta changed throughout. Like, for instance, I'm thinking of Season 2, where Shanghai just eventually figured out the triple DPS comms against GOATs. Arguable when you talk to the Titans and Shock from then. I think a lot of people say like GOATs would have made a comeback after. But do you guys think like the meta will be stable? Will we all be bored like after 2 weeks and we will all just play one comp? Or does it really depend on what kind of a patch we're getting? What's the general consensus here with 6 weeks of the same patch?
I mean, I think Overwatch 2, the meta shifts a lot more like, how do I say it? Like it can shift pretty extreme. So like you won't even get a patch and the meta will shift sometimes. So I don't think it'll be too boring, and I think it's a lot easier to balance 5v5 as well. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty unpredictable. Like you can look at like stage 2 where there's all these different comps and all these different maps and metas. I think that's when Overwatch is the best, is when you play different comps on different maps. But it's just unpredictable. Like it could also be like a playoffs meta and one comp. Just depends on what the patch is.
Yeah, what ends up happening a lot in Overwatch is the best team will play a comp, and then all the other teams will start copying that, because they're winning the scrim against you. So you start copying their comp and you start trying to improve and put in some of your own aspects to what, they're doing really well. But like UV said, I think Stage 2 was very healthy Overwatch, so we hope to see that back as much as we can this year, as little mirror matchups as possible. But we think, it'll always fluctuate between this is the best comp or you can play a variety of comps. And I think also the healthiest thing for Overwatch is obviously when multiple comps are viable and multiple comps can be played, especially based on the different maps.
I feel like when you guys say like the best teams very often determine the meta, historically over the last couple of years it has been Dallas, right? Now this year they have a pretty different team, I would say. They lost a couple of key players. What is the NA region like if Dallas can't determine the meta?
I'd say historically Dallas hasn't been the only team to determine the meta. They're usually the best team at determining the rush metas, right? The Lucio metas, that's their expertise. But like in stage 2 and even in stage 1, they weren't the best team because the comp they played wasn't the comp everybody copied. So if you couldn't beat them, join them. But there were metas where, teams were able to beat them, especially stage 2, when, the Lucio comp wasn't the best comp. But yeah, since that stage 2, especially with Kiriko released now, the Lucio comps have been superior. So Dallas is always really good figuring out what the best fast comp is and how to win those mirrors.
For sure. Kulush, let's say today was the start of the ProAm and we're playing the meta that's currently being played in scrims. Like, do you like the state of the balance right now?
Well, I don't even know if ball's meta right now. I mean, we're scrimming right now, and I'm kind of playing like a lot of different tanks, and I think Doom plays really good into ball. So, I mean, it really, we need to scrim more owl teams to see like really where the meta is and like what a lot of these other teams are playing to see our play style.
Sometimes something is very obviously overpowered, and sometimes you need to scrim on it in order to figure out what's good, right? Is there no glaring issue right now?
I think Kiri Lucio is kind of like, I don't know, you could play it everywhere if you really wanted to. But, I mean, you can play other things. I just think ball is like really busted and ranked, so everyone kind of assumes ball is going to be meta in scrims. So, I mean, that's just my perspective on it.
For sure. Now, I also wanted to sort of think about what you guys did last year. Of course, like you're coming together this year, but last year was your rookie year. And considering you were on different teams with, different amounts of playtime and whatnot and different amount of success, thought it would be fun for everyone to sort of rate what they think how their rookie year went. In terms of like, let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, how successful or how much of your potential have you fulfilled?
For me personally, I don't feel like I've what I want to do or can do in the league yet. I don't think we performed very well as a team. I don't think I performed very well as a player, and so I'm looking to change this year.
For my rookie year, I'd probably say like a 6. Granted, the highest I placed in the tournament was 4th, so that's like So yeah, I think this year we're capable of winning a lot more, and I think with winning comes playing better. So, especially when you're having fun, when you play with a group of guys that you enjoy playing the game with, you end up playing better while having fun. So that's my take on it.
I think for myself personally, I feel like I played like a 6 out of 10. I think how I viewed the game was kind of fundamentally wrong, and I feel like as like a person too, I kind of let my mental fall a little low. But that's something I've learned from. I've learned how to handle the losses better, and I think it'll make it this year a lot better for me.
I didn't play too much, but when I did, I thought I could have done better. I'd say I probably played in terms of what I can show, but that's probably like a 3 out of 10 last season, 4 out of 10.
I'd say maybe like a 5 out of 10, because I don't think I really had the time or the opportunities to show what I can really do.
Say for me, like 7 out of 10. You know, I was surrounded by a group of really good players. So that made me look a lot better than I thought I was. But I do think I grew over the stages. So I think this is the year that I can like really show what kind of player I am and how good I am on other heroes.
For me, I would say like 6 out of 10. Honestly, I feel like I was like, especially stage 2, I was like feeding a lot, but like it's just getting better now. I feel like I'm pro every day. So looking for the next season.
Does anyone feel anyone rated themselves too low, is too humble, and whenever you played against them, you were like, "God damn, that guy got hands."
I think Sam rated himself really low. I think when he came in, he did what he needed to do. He won his map 5s. He played good on the heroes he needed to play good on, and you know, I thought he did pretty good over the entire year.
Anybody else?
I'm good.
Right. Then I guess as a last question, I thought it would be fun to discuss among you who you think has the highest chance of your team to get either a MVP nomination or actually make it. So, like, who do you think? Like, who would it be out of you guys?
I think it's going to be me or Sam this year. You know, I think last year I learned like a lot from playing in that team environment. So I think I could show how good I am on like, you know, my weaker heroes this year. And now that I have people I can communicate with and make a lot more like fight plans and stuff, and you know, I could show my true potential. And I also think Sam could do a lot this year too.
I got Kaluj or UV. I think UV steps up a lot when he's with the AT guys. When I played with him, he's an outstanding player. I can't put into words how comfortable and overwhelmingly like how much pressure he put out against the enemy team is unbelievable. I just think really highly of UV. So UV or Kaluj for me.
I'm gonna say probably either of the shot guys. I think their level of understanding about the game is just currently like a lot like just higher than the rest of the teams.
I'm not really sure. I think it'll probably be either Kaluj or one of the DPS. Whichever the DPS finds herself more like most comfortable, or like their best meta that fits their playstyle, I think will end up probably getting it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal for like everyone is like to get Role Star at least this year. But like in terms of MVP, I think especially like Speedily is like, I think he plays really well with AT, and I think we all like know how to play with him and enable him and let him do what he wants to do. And also Kaluj and Sam on shot did really well last year too.
For MVP, I would definitely say Kaluj. I think he's improved and grown a lot as like a leader and a player from last year, and I think this year he can truly be like the carry of our team.
I think Speed could be MVP as well. I didn't touch on that. I actually do think if he puts in like a lot of effort this year, he will be like really good because his echo is like, I really think he's the best in the world. So yeah, I forgot to throw that in there.
Yeah, I remember Hydron telling me like if we get an echo meta, it's over for the league, isn't it?
I do think just in general, the way Speed plays the game is very carry and kill heavy. And of course for MVP, it's about like who looks the best, right? So I either think Kaluj because he'll be solo tanking. And, you know, if you solo tank and you can learn a wide array of characters, look at Someone, look at Smurf, I think that looks very good if the team plays around you well. And also I think, you know, Speedily, if he gets comfortable metas and I think with a lot of resources, he does insanely well, and he can just take over games. So I think when you look at MVP, you look at players that can single-handedly take over games, and I think Speed can be a player like that if he puts in the work, like Kaluj said.
Awesome. Then I think, yeah, that's. Thank you for the interview, and I hope the best. Of course, best of luck in preparation for the ProAm.
Wait, hold on. Majed, what do you think?
Oh, true.
Definitely Kluge. I would say Kluge, honestly. He's just like the carry of the team. Like in game and like everything.
All right, we're putting a lot of faith into me right now. I think we need to reel it in a little bit. I think I'll do good, but I don't think I'm going to be like an MVP. You know, I think it's going to be one of the DPS, like probably. You know,
It's definitely you, but yeah.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think.
Right. Then, thank you guys.
Thank you.